Advisory Commission meeting. And so first I'm going to start with just providing the agenda. We're going to call the meeting to order at 10:41 a.m. Again, thank you for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and move on to attendance just to take roll of everyone here. I'm going to say your name if you don't mind just introducing yourself so we can keep the flow going. And I will start with Chief Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm multitasking. How's everybody? I really don't have a whole lot to report. You just want me to introduce or report?
Yes, just introduce. So just say your name and title.
Chief Ricky Brown, Transit Police. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ricky? You're on mute, Ricky.
Ricky Yamakura, Manager of Data and Reporting.
Thanks. Kristen?
Kristen Lukowski on the marketing team.
Ayobami? Ayobami, can you hear me? Okay. We'll come back. Ayobami Bell Torrance is here as well. She's also on the marketing team. Shar?
Shar Yates, marketing team.
Deanna?
Deanna Donahue, Grants and Planning Coordinator.
So I
Alicia?
Alicia Miller, compliance manager.
Thank you. Mike?
Mike Dolly, Superintendent, standing in for Director of Maintenance, Larry Luckett.
Thank you. Sandra?
Good morning, I'm Zandra Wimberly, Assistant Director, Administration.
And let's go on to Ms. Walsh.
Miriam Walsh, Deputy Director, Administration for DDOT.
Ms. Pittman?
Lois Pittman, Deputy Director, Operations and Maintenance.
And Director Oglesby.
Michael Oglesby, Executive Director.
We can move on to the commissioners joining us today, starting with, I'm sorry, Simone Lowe. Didn't want to leave you out. Thanks, Simone, for raising your hand. Simone Lowe is also here joining us today. She is with TransDev, so she'll be able to speak to our paratransit services. Andy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Andy DeRossi. I'm the Commissioner at Large. I'm the owner of the Detroit Bus Company.
Consuela.
Bon dia, Consuelo Lopez, District 6.
And Patty.
Yep, Patty Fedewa, Representative District 5, right, bus rider from the east side.
All right, thanks all. So that's everybody here today. Again, we are missing a few commissioners, so I believe we technically do have a quorum. We have a couple seats that are vacant. So we have half of the existing body today, and we'll get into solutions for that today. All right, next.
Art Vitamin, representing Councilman McAllister, District 2.
Sorry, Mr. Art. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Glad to be here. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, Art.
All right, next on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would wish to make a comment? I mean, just to reiterate, this is a commissioner meeting. This is not our traditional community input meeting. So this is an opportunity. If you have any comments about any division, if you want to speak, now is the time.
There is a hand up.
Okay.
Mr. Verse.
And Mr. Larry, can you hear us?
Mr. Verse, you should be unmuted.
I
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Hi, yes,
Yes,
we
sir.
can.
Okay, good. Morning. I hope all of you are doing well under the circumstances. And I'll make this short. I have basically a few questions. One, of the three bodies that hold public meetings, are they posted somewhere so the public can review them at a later time? Yeah. Second question is, how should I put it? How DDOT spends its money, its accounting, can it be posted for the public to see? And specifically, I would like to know, where can the public find a breakdown of how farebox revenue is expended? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. We have taken all those down. Again, I just want to reiterate, this is a public comment period. So we will be able to respond to you later in the meeting. Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment? Megan Owens, I see your hand raised.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I primarily wanted to say that I know everyone at DDOT has been working really hard through this crazy past year, and it is much appreciated. And I'm excited about the potential that new federal funding can provide to really make some major updates. Not only have we already seen, I can't remember the exact, well, in the region has already gotten over $200 million for public transit improvements, if I have those numbers right, and we'll soon be seeing another 100 million. I want to make sure, I think it's important that we make sure that those, in addition to maintaining basic service, that riders can see some real substantive improvements. So I hope you'll have an opportunity to discuss during this meeting and during future meetings the best uses for that next, how the last dollars were used and the best uses for those next dollars, and make sure that there's a list of priorities if there are opportunities for future federal funds. Knowing that we have a administration and that is very supportive of both transit and of Detroit, does DDOT have a list ready of requests to the federal government for ways that we can make major substantive improvements for how to move from an adequate system to a really great system? So I look forward, ideally during this meeting or as well as during future meetings, to hear more and discussion of how that will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Owens.
Do one more. Jacob Graham.
Hello, everyone. I am a regular rider in District 5, or I guess I was a regular rider, but with the frequencies the way that they are nowadays, and the no-show buses the way they are nowadays, I have decided, rather than wait another hour for my next bus, I'll just ride my bike for an hour. So at least I get there. So I guess hearing about all the federal funds coming in, I'm really excited that DDOT can use those well. And I heard about the negotiations for the wage increase, I don't know, a month ago or something, and that makes me really excited, because I know a big part of the low frequency and high missed bus is due to driver shortages. So I just hope you all can keep working on recruiting drivers and helping get more buses out there.
Yeah. Was there anyone else today for comment? Okay,
That's everyone.
thanks. So the next part, we're gonna do the director's report with Director Oglesby. I am working on opening the presentation at this moment. It's taking a second to load.
So how are we going to do this? I thought I had co-host. I don't have co-host, or am I going to be saying next slide, or what's going on?
Do you have co-host? If you do, that would be perfect.
Mary, excuse me, we learned you don't have the license, Mary, and you are co-host now.
Okay, so I can share my screen and then I can do next slide for you, Mr. Oglesby.
You guys tell me. I don't know what's going on.
I will. Yeah, Marianne, that works. Mine is just taking a long time to download. If you have it available, that would be great.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
It's coming up, yes.
Okay, hold on. Let me just get into slideshow. Oops, sorry, hold on. And sir, if you wouldn't mind just cueing me when you're ready.
Sure, absolutely. So some of you may have seen a portion of this. For some reason, I get so many different questions. I just keep adding more and more to what's going on here. But I thought it would be important for this advisory commission to sort of see where we are from a metric standpoint, some of the spending, how things are looking, some of the great funding that's coming up, yet it hasn't been specifically identified in a lot of the locations of how that money can be spent. So it's a little difficult to try to put it in pockets, but we're attempting to do it anyway to get ahead, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So if you don't mind, next slide. So this is a little bit on the fixed route metrics. I think it's very important to see here. It kind of shows from 2018, 19, and 2020. Shows where things are. You know, our ridership dropped drastically, and obviously that's due to COVID and or the pandemic, that is. And then the fare box recovery ratio, of course, dropped drastically, but that was offset with the funding that we did get. The pullout rate, you know, it says we have, I don't really like these pullout rate numbers because the pullout rate does not directly correlate to the actual service that you see on the street, given the reduction in the amount of people that can be on a vehicle. Again, even expanding it to 20, we saw some great numbers, but then that started changing because more people started getting out. And then here we are again. So if somebody pulls out, if we have one bus that doesn't pull out, let's say at 6 o'clock, then we have another bus that pulls out at 6:30. The person sitting there waiting for a half hour. If the first bus picks up 20, it's going to end up going past everybody. And then it goes in a circle and it multiplies into a long period of time. So that's sort of us chasing our tail. And the pandemic is a major part of it. Next slide. Major update. So a lot of you know we resumed fare collection on March 15th, and we created the barrier installation. It allowed passengers to board from the front. We have hand sanitizing machines on board and 20 people per vehicle. We are exploring cashless fare collection solutions together with SMART. We're going to do it. As a matter of fact, we're even speaking to Ann Arbor and everybody else to try to see if we can be on the same page, and we want to use the same collection method for the people mover. It's not as simple as a lot of people think. We're going through the process of looking at options right now, but we are utilizing sanitizing stations at this point. Next slide. Service level clarifications. There's been a lot of questions and understood frustration over the past 10 months that I've been here, which is unusual because typically within a 10-month period, I would be able to get out and about a lot more than I could have. But remember, it was in the heart of the pandemic. So there's only so much that can be done. We've been spending a lot of time trying to keep service on the road. And I think we've done a decent job of that. Of course, we can do better, but we have a lot of obstacles, and we can talk about that. DDOT's currently operating at 78.5% of pre-pandemic service levels. of mid-March 2021. And at the beginning of the pandemic, in April 2020, DDOT reduced its service levels by 42%, meaning that we reduced the published schedule to 58% of pre-pandemic levels. So by February 2021, pullout rates were around 85%. And to tell you, quite frankly, I think pullout rates have always been right around that number. But of course, that's another thing I'm looking into. Next slide, please. Upcoming federal dollars. A lot of people have a lot of anticipation. I have a lot of anticipation and hopes that I'll be able to utilize that funding to increase public transportation as a whole. DDOT will begin community conversations when the rules are known. So the goal isn't for DDOT to just come up with, this is what it's going to be. We're going to be looking to the public for input and information. But I caution that this funding is only money that's here for 3 years, and it must be used for a lasting impact. After the 3-year period, if it increased costs and it's not sustainable, those are not what the funds are being used for. So for example, if I use the money to increase bus operators by X amount, at the end of that term, it would not be sustainable. So those are the things that we're going back and forth with. In addition, funding can't be used to extend transportation system to unsustainability, which is basically what I just said. And when we consider improvements, we have to think long-term. We're going to be turning to not only the public, but we'll be turning to this advisory commission for ideas. And if anyone has potential buckets of ideas, feel free to send them in. And when I say buckets, overall thoughts and needs. One thing that I caution, and I hear it consistently, why don't you just add more buses? Well, to add more buses, you need to add more service. We have 288 buses. We currently are running approximately 240. You are allowed 20% over what your service level is. That's why we have 288. And if we increase it higher, we have to increase the service higher. If we increase the service higher, it's a higher operating cost. If it's a higher operating cost, we need more operators. And we currently need operators, and we're having an operator problem right now getting operators, and part of it is because of COVID, not being able to get licenses. So we're struggling right now to get the service on the road that we need simply because of manpower. I'm proud to say that we're really approaching the manpower effort and letting people know that, listen, we're hiring. And if anybody's listening, we're hiring. And if you know anybody, we're hiring. And to the advisory commission meeting, folks, if you'd like to assist, we're hiring. So we need people. Next slide. We continue to make strides since 2014. I thought it was important to put this information here because it's clear that there's been some frustration of DDOT's performance all the way back to 2014. I think some things have been done. Is it enough? Maybe not. But was something done? Yes, it was. So I don't think it's fair to say nothing was done. I will say that, again, over a short period of time, we've done a few things that I'll mention to assist in the challenge that we have today, but I can't compare the past 10 months to service back to 2014 because the pandemic is the first pandemic since the Spanish flu. And I think people have to be aware of that. And I know people get frustrated, but we are in the middle of a pandemic and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. So the goal here is to try to keep service on the road. DDOT added 80 new buses to the fleet in the recent years. 26 buses were replaced, bringing down the average coach age to 5 years. Bus frequency has increased on major routes, reducing time between buses by nearly half. The challenge is, that's from a schedule standpoint, is getting the people in to actually accomplish that. But the schedule itself is good. The routes like the 5 Van Dyke, the 9 Jefferson, the frequency have been increased from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. Again, from a scheduling standpoint, the schedule looks good. We're having a problem with getting operators. We've had them during the pandemic and it's recently popped up again. Next slide. Since 2014, more than 15,000 additional weekly trips were added through expanded service. DDOT worked with SMART to coordinate a universal fare, which we're all aware of, and we established routes that best serve the riders. And DDOT hired transit police, which are deployed on the buses. As a matter of fact, the good news is that City Council had moved forward to approve 10 additional officers. This is for preventive measures. We only have 38 now, and for a system this size, it actually should be double. Next slide. Ridership and performance updates. Over the past 2 weeks, overcrowding has been reduced by 22% by boarding from the front and collecting fares. On-time performance and pullout is trending positively. It's not where we want it to be, and I told you the various reasons. DDOT expects better performance now that the operator union contract's ratified and a new attendance policy is included in place. But I will say, after looking at the statistics, the attendance isn't the overall problem. The overall problem is we need more people. Next slide. Challenges during 2020. Next slide. Well, these are the challenges a lot of people already know: the fear of the unknown, suspension of fares, elevated job stress, overcrowding of buses, social distancing in vehicles, and discontinued hazard pay. Well, that challenge continues because the majority of these, with the exception of, well, actually, these all still take place because we are boarding from the front of the bus and we still have overcrowding. Allowing 20 people on a vehicle is not enough. The solution of putting more vehicles out there, we actually do, and we have to do it on the fly. But remember, we have to do it with the existing vehicles that we have. So we have to take from one route and bring it over to another route real time. That is not easy to do. If there is a bus that is running empty across town, I can't just order it over and have it magically appear in 5 minutes in a location where it's going to be crowded. We work hard on using automatic passenger counter information to try to have a guesstimate as to when this overcrowding takes place, but it's still not enough. Again, the capacity issue on the bus is wreaking havoc on our system, and it's showing. Next slide. We put in place operator protection with a 3-step protection process: masks, barriers, and vaccine. It allowed the operators to feel comfortable enough to move forward, and I was able to start boarding from the front again, which increased capacity. Next slide. Service changes during COVID. Here are some of the service changes at the very beginning from March 23rd till June 2020. We did a Saturday service level schedule. It was not working. That's when I just came on board. I think I came on in May, right in the middle of it. In June, there were a lot of people, including the general public, saying, go back to a weekday service schedule. We tried it during the summer and it was terrible. The reason why it did not work is because when you expand the amount of service, it requires more operators, and it just doesn't work. That, coupled with the fact that that regular service took peak and non-peak into consideration. If you look at COVID and during the pandemic and the type of riders that were riding, they're not working because jobs are closed or they're working via Zoom. So we have to find the new peak, non-peak. And in order to do that, we had to do an adjusted schedule. Next slide. Our adjusted schedule was as follows. These are the modified weekday schedules that we did, and we also took some routes and did some enhanced Saturday schedule during the weekday. So in saying that, that's still an ongoing process. We are still assessing. We just had a bid, that change with a few other things that have taken place, the implementation of the absenteeism policy, the timing of it has affected our service. Hopefully it's just temporarily and we will see better service moving forward. Our staff is working diligently to fix the issues. Van Dyke modified headway to return to regular service. The Jefferson on the 9 modified headway, and 38 Plymouth were 2 additional locations that during this this run cut, we added more service. Next slide. Project updates. I'll run through this very quickly. State Fair is moving along. We went through the appropriate process. The DBA has moved forward with some conceptual designs. They're trying to incorporate one or two of the existing buildings that are there, the Coliseum or the, I can't remember the other one. Mickey, what's the other one? Cattle.
Dairy barn.
There you go. There you go. Thank you. Don't get old, Mickey. Don't get old. Just stay young. You won't have these problems I have. And then the expected date of completion is 2022. Next slide. We want to electrify Detroit. We have a opportunity to move forward in various ways with this project. So right now we have a pilot program. I expanded it with the agency's focus on electrification of our fleet down the road to 4 vehicles, and it's a pilot program. We're a Portera bus. We have a charging station that's set up at Shoemaker, and we're looking at the en route charging station 9 times out of 10. It'll be over at Rosa Parks, and potentially we'll have one at State Fair. But right now we're focusing on this pilot program to see how it performs. There are various companies that have various electric buses. We want the best. And there is an opportunity possibly with this infrastructure funding coming down the road to invest in electric vehicles moving forward. Next slide. Special project updates. Bus stop signs were piloted as listed. 41 out of 59 of the new ad shelters are installed, but one of the things that we may be able to look at with some of this funding coming up is the actual pads. Maybe we do a full assessment from an ADA standpoint to find some upgrades for the bus shelters that we currently have, and expanding our bus shelters and doing some things for the ADA community and people with disabilities. I mean, the sky's the limit. So those are some of the things we may be able to use the funding for. And 26 buses were replaced. Next slide. Next slide. Listed as how the CARES Act funding was utilized. So 36,000 operating assistance, 27,000 in preventive maintenance, and 642,000 in surveillance and security, which is a standard of that. And I'm going to move this. 625 and metropolitan planning. So in short, when the CARES Act funding came, the way that it was distributed was the finance department had taken our funding, offset our fare issues, and then any costs moving forward that were related to the pandemic were charged, and that's how these numbers came about. Next slide. CRISA funding's coming up, and the question is, what are you going to use the 20,000 for? Well, it's geared towards operating assistance, and it's put in the budget and approved by City Council as such. It's going to be used for operating payroll, sanitizing and cleaning, PPE, security, and any other eligible costs depending on the amount of money that's left. So the way that it's utilized here is it's put in as a replacement for funding to offset all these items and potentially fare. Because even though we're collecting a fare right now, we have a little bit of a problem where we're only allowing 50% of the people on the vehicle. So 9 times out of 10, we're only going to collect 50% of the funds that we'd normally get. It's simple common sense. And with that being said, it could be a lot lower, and that's with crowded buses. So we have to have the funding for that. Next slide. Customer service. This is very quickly how we collect our customer service feedback. There's a customer service line. We have online feedback form, and this is something that I showed to the RTA. Next slide. Here's a list of some of the top complaints, which may not be as appropriate for this group, but I think it's important to just take a look at it anyway so you can actually see it. Drivers have limited capacity with the restrictions. We were just basically showing how we respond to customers. Next slide. A little bit about a few myths. Some riders have cars, we can go green, they take public transportation. Some riders prefer to take the bus rather than worry about traffic and parking. We're striving to become the transit agency of choice for all. In order to do that, we have to fix the service that we have today. I can't say that more and more. We need to get back to basics and fix what we have. A lot of people are saying, how are you going to advance? I respond with, how are we going to fix what we have today? Once we fix the floor, we can move forward. So that's been our major focus. Over a 10-month period, and it's been a challenge because of the pandemic. Next slide. Other myths, buses are just sitting around. People see the bus sitting there, they don't realize it's a layover. Next slide. Oh, that's it. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of, I've done a few presentations on various pieces. I've heard various concerns, so I tried to address them in this PowerPoint. And I continue to take feedback. So with that being said, Mickey, let's move forward.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Director Oglesby from the commissioners?
Yeah, this is Patty. Hi. I guess you say that, okay, we need to fix what we have. I still haven't heard what the plan is for doing that, a timeline, how that's going to get done. And then secondly, even beyond COVID, we haven't had enough service. We don't have a plan to ever get to enough service. And when I mean enough service, be able to get around the city in under an hour, I mean to really be able to take advantage of a successful transit system. And I'm still not hearing the plan. And yeah, it costs resources and there needs to be a plan to take care of this and make it happen. That's really the bottom line question I have.
Okay, so I agree. There needs to be a plan, there needs to be a strategic plan. And coming on board and taking a look, it's not something that can be done overnight. When we do have the actual plan as an overall plan, you will know. I will tell you right now, I can tell you our plan for each issue that we have to try to address it. For example, currently we have a ridership issue, right? The reason why we have a ridership issue is because we're not meeting our service levels. The reason why we're not meeting our service levels is because we don't have enough operators. So our plan is to get more operators. How's that?
How? I guess more operators, but just we haven't been successful with that. Even with the new contract, the wages just aren't that high.
Okay, so we just announced the contract just a few weeks ago. If you think that instantly drivers will pop out of the blue, that's impossible. I will tell you that it sets the base to be able to get more operators. And I ask for patience with that, because we can't speed it up. Case in point, we have to go through a full training. First, we have to advertise. So right now we have 6 operators that we're training. There's a full training process that they have to go through. Before we could do that, we were having a problem getting people. So let's talk about the pandemic. During the pandemic, over a 10-week period, I think I actually recall you actually saying, we need more people, why aren't you getting more people? The reason why we couldn't get more people during the pandemic was because the Secretary of State was not issuing CDLs. So even if we had 10 people that wanted to work, we couldn't get them to work, and I can't put somebody out on the road without a CDL. So now
I thought that was corrected. We were told a few months ago it was corrected.
It was not. It was corrected a few months ago. That's correct. But remember, we're talking about a tight schedule. I'm talking about over a 10-month period. COVID, I don't know how many times I can say this. This pandemic took place. And then during the pandemic, there was a chokeout period where even companies, organizations were not even open. And we were going to the Secretary of State trying to get some movement. So for months that didn't take place. So yes, over the past few months, it loosened up, but it's still a challenge. And that's from January till present. But for a long period of time, we're having a problem. With that being said, let's say we have 8 people in right now. The first group of drivers that I'm able to train are in training right now, but it's only 6. I need 20 a month, but there's only 6, right? So now we're training the 6. Hopefully they'll all go through and we'll get them on the road. 9 times out of 10, it may end up being 4. That's not enough. That's like throwing a tic tac in the ocean. We know that we need more. So from one side, we're working hard to get people on board. From the other side, you're saying, what's your plan? Well, you can't plan that out anymore. Our moving forward, one thing that we're doing is we are taking a look at an entire push. I'm trying to get the city on board, an entire push for operators. We're working on a marketing plan. We're putting it on our buses and our vehicles. We're putting it inside of our vehicles. We are letting people know that we're hiring. Our wages are the same as SMART. So I don't understand what you mean when you say they're not competitive, because the only competition that we were having a problem with before, after speaking to the operators, and I spoke to over 300 of them, was the wage issue. And they wanted to be up to SMART. So we are, as a matter of fact, in certain portions of the contract, we actually are better than, we actually pay more than SMART, because we built in sort of a incentive that if you work at the very beginning when you're a student, there's a dollar amount, and then after 6 months you get more, and then after a year you get more, to retain these people that were being trained and then leaving to go work for the competition. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I was just wondering, is the mayor's office helping you with the Secretary of State? Because that's something that they would be in a good position to do right now.
Yes, so they helped us all during COVID, but there was a point where we could not get anyone on the phone. So I understand it seems simple. Just call the mayor's office, have them make a call. If you can't get anyone on the call, you can't get anyone to call. I will tell you, ever since it's opened up, it's been a lot better. And that's why we have 6 operators, but 6 operators is still not enough. So if I take that now and I go all the way back to the very beginning, which is, why don't you just put more people on? That's the retort. And I could actually answer just like that on every single portion. I don't know if that's something you want to do with everybody here or something you want to do personally or privately, but I can assure you that we are working hard. What I would like is for the advisory commission to be an advisor, right? I would like the advisory commission to assist. And I think what I'd like to do is put some of these things out there and have the advisory commission help us find solutions versus question our actions.
We would love that. Give us a list of what we should be doing. And I can tell you that I would spread that to other advocates as well. We really want to support what you're doing. It's just hard to know where things are going and what's going on.
Understood. But again, the best way to find out is ask, not criticize.
And how do we get a host? Can we
That's my honest opinion. And I also tasked this commission to work together to decide how that happens. So Ms. Fedwa, perhaps you'd like to talk to your fellow members to come up with a way that we can supply that. So I put it back on you. You tell me.
Okay, so you're asking us to figure out how you can hire, or is this something we're going to be working within the department to help you with hiring? Or I guess I just want to make sure I know who I'm supposed to be talking to next.
Okay, so that was nice. That was not what I was talking about. I was not talking about hiring. Let me clarify this again. I think that if the commission got together and made a decision on how you can collectively ask us what you need in order to come to where you need to go, or give suggestions on how to move forward, I would ask that you all do that. These are everything, not just one topic. Instead of listing how terrible DDOT is, and then saying it's been like this since 2014, because I can't control 2014, but what I can do, I can control how we move forward, and I can control how we do it collectively, which I think will give the advisory commission the teeth that is needed to bring this system forward in a positive way.
All right.
Well, let me just say one thing. I know you're referring to my op-ed, and that was directed at the mayor who's never had a plan for DDOT. I think you're as much a victim of it as everyone else in the department. And I talked about hardworking employees, and I just want to make that absolutely clear. I don't think the mayor is focused on transit. And there's this idea that transit doesn't have to be this good or great system. So I think the bottom line is we want to make this a better system. And I'm concerned that the mayor's not giving you the resources and the ability to do so. And if this is going to do it, if you can give us a long list, of things to work on, and we can work with the department on items, we would love to do that. But I think the fundamental issue is the department's not given the resources, and it's not all monetary to really make a great department.
Well, I can tell you, I can't comment on the mayor or the mayor's office, and I can tell you, yeah, I am familiar with that article. It did put DDOT in a negative light. I don't think it was fair. And if I had a retort to that, it would prove that there were some misstatements within that document. But that's neither here nor there, and we can talk about that. And I don't know what the purpose of the reason behind it is. I'm new and I'm trying to do the right thing. So I think we're all on the same page. I would like for us to all go about it the appropriate way, professionally. And I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. I will also tell you that the big problem that we're having right now, and I think Mr. Verse had mentioned it, is the service. The service can be improved without the funding that we have moving forward, because I have the funding for enough operators. I have the money. So getting the operators and having better service will instantly change a lot of things. That has nothing to do with the mayor's office. That has nothing to do with the ability of funding, because I have that funding. DDOT has had that funding. DDOT has not had an extra board for probably over 20 years, which I think is absurd. I think we have to move forward with that. We have to find out internally what's going on with our counts, our operator count, what's going on with our vehicles. I mean, there's a lot of internal things that need to be fixed that it doesn't matter how much you say, it's not going to get fixed. The way it'll get fixed is if we internally address and approach it. And we're doing that as we speak.
Mr. Oglesby, and thank you, Patty, for your questions. We're going to move on. We do have a lot more to cover, and there, of course, will be plenty of opportunity for further discussion on any particular topic. So next, we're going to hop into division reports. Mr. Ogilvy's presentation did cover a lot. So as listed in that presentation, our last service change was in February of this year. So moving forward, we are monitoring that service change, making sure we're able to see if there's any needs for any tweaks. But beyond that, at the moment, there are no plans for any service changes. And then next we have operations.
Good morning, everyone. Lois Pittman, Deputy Director, Operations and Maintenance. As Mickey just stated, Mr. Oglesby covered a lot of things going on already in operations. So some of the things you've already heard, and I'll just kind of piggyback on some of the topics. Currently, we do have a new TEO training class with 6 trainees. That class is a 12-week class, and we will be focusing on safety and customer service. Also, we have the electric bus project where we will have the 4 electric buses. The build of the buses begins the first week of September with a completion date of end of 2021. Also, again, with the ratification of the new ATU Local 26 operators contract, which was ratified on March 3rd. Also, Again, the increase in the social distancing for the seating capacity for 40 footers has been increased to 20, 60 footers has been increased to 26. Also, we do have ongoing hiring session for our TEOs as well as support staff, and also an increase in to increase our manpower with our service guards, our security force, especially that's very important now since of what just happened in Indianapolis at the FedEx. I think it's very important that we focus on safety. And basically, that's all we have for operations.
Lois, next we have maintenance.
Good morning, everyone. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Mr. Oglesby touched on everything, a lot of things out there that we were going to speak on, but I will piggyback off of what he's done. We do have sanitizers that have been installed on all of our service buses that we're running. They are serviced every night to make sure that you have the sanitary capability for your hands when you step on the vehicle. We also have masks provided that have been moved to the front of the vehicle. So when you get on the vehicle, you can actually get a mask so you can practice the being safe on the vehicle. The buses are also being sanitized at the terminal every night and daily at the State Fair Transit Center, at Rosa Parks Transit Center, St. John Hospital, and 8 Mile and Gratiot. We have a company, Clever Devices, which is handling a lot of our infrastructure for our vehicles to have for communication, to make it a lot simpler for the operators to be able to get the vehicles in service, meaning plugging in their runs and everything that they do, right down to when this is done, you'll be able to see when the vehicles are approaching the stop at a lot of major intersections. This is winding down. All of the hardware has been installed on the buses. They're completing now the testing of the system and programming the final part of that. The maintenance division has 3 new service trucks that are being prepared to go in service. Those trucks are there to help with the incidental repairs on the vehicles when they're out in service, so they can stay in service for the portion of the day to stay reliable for the customers. So those are hopefully will be out within the next week or so. We also have a repowering of our 2014 bus fleet, which are the 1400s. We've already done the 1200 series, which is a Gillick bus, the 2012s. This fleet was a 30 bus fleet. We have 8 vehicles left for the repower, which is done at roughly mid-life of the vehicle. This is on schedule to be completed by July 1st, and we're on schedule. That's all I have.
Next, we have Transit Police.
Good morning. Thank you again. I debated whether to bring this topic back up. However, I think it's important to allay any fears or concerns regarding the COVID issue. As you know, based on the nature of the officers' business, they come in contact with a lot of various individuals, and through trace quarantine, we're notified with the good relationship of the health department whether our officers have been in contact with someone who tested positive. And unfortunately, based on the incubation period and the immediate quarantining of those officers, our manpower has been affected. However, we've been blessed that after quick testing, those officers, the majority of our officers have been returned back to work. As the executive director stated, budget is there for additional officers, and I'm working personally with some of our legislators that will assist us in some legislation that will be valuable with our recruiting efforts. So we're working hard and diligently. And I also, last but not least, want to thank the general public for their cooperation and compliance with a lot of the rules and regs that we had to come up to make it safe for us all.
Thank you, Chief Brown. Next, we have compliance.
Good morning, Alicia Miller, Compliance Manager. At this time, the Office of Compliance have no projects to provide an update for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have grants.
Hi, everyone. As several others have mentioned, Mr. Oglesby touched on the newer grants that we have going on, including CARES and CRISA. And for the ARP, we do have, the RTA has a plan to begin those discussions next month in May. And they want to be more intentional about that spending. So we'll have a discussion there on how the funds will be allocated. And once DDOT is aware of its allocation, we can plan our projects from there. And that's all I have.
Louisiana. Next, we have Ricky with data and reporting.
Everyone, maybe it's a good time for a little bit of an update for the Advisory Commission on our tech upgrade. I know it's been a few months and be able to talk about that. Just kind of piggyback off what Mr. Dolly was saying. Yeah, Clever Devices install is going as planned. We have a couple of things to update you on, though. I know that a lot of people have said it. The pandemic has been very difficult when it comes to rolling out the system. I think we all intended when the system was first designed that there was going to be a big kind of ribbon cutting element to it, and the system all goes live at once. But in order to handle the varying travel restrictions and ability to have vendors on site incrementally, I think we're getting to the point now where I can report we're about 90% of the way there. Some of the things that I know that we've had a lot of feedback on, such as bus being located via apps. I think that equipment down at Rosa Parks to know when the arrivals are supposed to be, annunciation on the buses, driver ability to log in, as well as awareness where the drivers are, and the signage are all a testament to the hard work that I think people in maintenance, people in operations, our MIS department have all banded together with our vendors. So kudos to them. I think by all means, please make mention as, if you see any of these technical issues come up, we'd love to hear about them. But I'm happy to report that with that being at that kind of part in our milestones, we are building out a reporting system based on the new systems integrations. A little bit of an integration issue when it comes to data at the end, but we're going to resolve that within the next month. And as our internal reporting reflects a lot of that integration, some of that's going to funnel up to the public. So you'll see an expansion of that visibility from that point. So a little update that way. I do want to also make mention, for those of you that are interested in statistics, this is one of the first months that the pandemic has crossed over. I know, believe me, like a year in, now we're starting to see the statistics like fold over last year's statistics. So this month, we're going to be like 400% the last year, for those of us that are familiar to last year's number. So this is going to be an interesting time for statistics right when we start to, get a little more in depth in it. So more to come in that way. But, keep that in mind. Our statistics are probably going to be a 2019, 2020, 2021 comparison. So you might start seeing some of that as we describe in presentations and such, what goes into that, because we do need to incorporate pre-pandemic numbers from this point forward. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricky. And last but not least, we have customer service. Sandra.
Good morning, everyone. We are pleased to report in our customer service division that we have one new trainee who is on board. Her training is going well, and she actually has been released to be on her own receiving calls, and I've got a report that she's doing well. So we're hoping to retain her as a customer service agent. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to make one quick amendment to the agenda. Simone Lowe is here from TransDev. Simone, did you have any updates you wanted to provide regarding paratransit?
Good morning, Mickey. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. We have been operating at 67% of our ridership pre-COVID. So we are exercising our safety measures and best practices, of course, with continuing the reduction of multi-loading, requiring face masks by drivers and riders on the vehicles, providing hand sanitizer, and then masks for those who don't come out with a mask on. And just educating our staff and the drivers of opportunities that are available for vaccines through the city. Our vehicles in maximum service currently are 54, and we still have the same 6 providers that we were working with since the pandemic. Just working on some action plans, assuring and improving quality of service. We are also hiring customer service representatives to work from home. And working on signage for our vehicles. And those are the updates that we have for paratransit. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the commissioners regarding any of the updates?
Yeah, I've already been here. I just want to say, I want to give kudos to all of you because a lot of people don't understand the situation in which you're working under. I also want to give kudos to the director. One of the things that people don't understand, even when you get training from a bus driver, doesn't necessarily means that they make it through training because they find out, I don't know if I can handle this or not. So in terms of the director saying, trying to get more operators into training, it's an important issue because without drivers, then you don't have anything. The other thing is that I'm concerned about training with the new electrical buses and parts and all that. You know, I don't know how that training is going. Maybe Mike Dowler can express that. I don't know, but it's good to hear from you too, Mike.
Thank you.
I'd like to address that. Art has a fantastic point about the new electrical buses because it's completely different. No joke, it's completely different. The difference, but you know, you don't even need a wrench for half the stuff. All you need is a iPad or something. But I will say that the new buses will be coming at the end of the year, so we have time, and all of the mechanics will be thoroughly trained on them. And it's a pilot program, so this is an opportunity to learn before we really make the decision to bring them in as a fleet replacement. So right now we're not a fleet replacement. So we're going to make sure that the company that provides the bus will provide the training and pass the skill along. And then as they pass the skill along, it'll trickle down. So great point, and we're going to make sure that takes place.
Well, I think you're doing an excellent job under the circumstances, but you have a lot of people that just simply don't understand how transit works. And I've said it for years and years. It's operational and it's also maintenance. And that doesn't change whether it's a plane, bus, or train. So the approach that you take, a director, I think is a good approach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yes, I actually have 4 questions. The last one is actually for Oglesby. The first 2 are really, really simple. So the first thing, with the pandemic, how are we dealing with or creating space for self-care? Because a lot of our frontline people, many of us suffered, death, and then you have anxiety. So if we're talking about internal and external customer service, how do we acknowledge that and manage that? So, we don't have people who are like, it's just important for us to have that conversation, especially now as we move forward with the pandemic. Have you guys have a discussion on that, or have you made some opportunities to create some spaces like that internally with your staff?
Mr. Oglesby, if I may, this is Mary Ann Welsh, Deputy Director of Administration. Good afternoon. That's an excellent point and question. We have dispatched our Human Resources Division out to the terminals 2 times per week to address operators' concerns ranging from COVID questions to pay questions to general questions. And Human Resources reports back to the executive office what trends are occurring, and we pivot to their needs, whatever they may be, as well as the executive director making appearances, sometimes planned, sometimes not planned, just to check the pulse of our operators. Today, we're going out to have a morale boosting experience, and the Detroit Red Wings have offered tickets to a game coming up in May, and we're doing a raffle just to provide some spirit lifting activities for our frontline essential workers.
And yeah, and let me add to that, if you don't mind. The other thing that's been taking place too, and again, we really care about the operators. If the operators do have any issues, they have some place to go, Marianne, right? So we need to let her know that.
Yes, the Human Resources Division for the city will provide any type of employee assistance, counseling programs, et cetera, for them.
And just to let the commission know that what we're doing is very unusual for DDOT. I went out and I spoke to the operators directly, and they were complaining that they didn't see, they have issues with human resources, they have issues with payroll. That's their biggest problem. We can't get through. They're sitting at home. So what I did is I put human resources in the 2 terminals. So there are hours that human resources is there for the first time. The operators walk in, see HR there, they'll be able to talk to them directly about the issues and have them handled on the spot. And at that time, any type of self-care, wage issues, and when I say wage issues, there are some people, I talked to one person who indicated that they hadn't been paid, and because they didn't get paid, their car insurance had ran out and they couldn't even drive to be able to provide service for us. I mean, I was frightened. So we made sure that we covered that angle. So we are doing some things that are a little creative to make sure that the operators are good to go.
I'm encouraged by that. I think these are like the knowledge gems that makes my day happier, as being out there too, because mental health is really quintessential in knowing that you guys are doing something that's not expected, but that's humanly empowering. That's important to me. And that's something that to share and talk about. So I know that inspires your drivers and things like that. And so on that note, when it comes to we need more operators. So have we thought about like using some of our drivers to do like a little, like, why work for DDOT? This is why I work for DDOT, despite all of this, because I'm supported. This is a healthy environment for you to come and join, like be a part of the DDOT family. Maybe that will inspire folks who have lost their jobs or on the verge of losing their jobs to like, this is maybe a new opportunity for me, for us to do, to join, the family, something like that. So that's just an idea. I don't know what you think.
Let's talk about that idea. I like it. I think that's very good. It falls in place with something that we're working on currently. And I know Marianne was going to probably jump in from a marketing standpoint, but we can definitely throw that in. See, that's what I'm looking for from the commission. That is what I'm talking about. We can take that and make that do something, right? So Marianne, you were going to say something?
Yes, I was. That is an excellent idea. And we are looking to our operators. They can be our biggest billboard. If they're out talking to their friends about how wonderful it is to work here, that's the biggest billboard we can ask for. If they're out there saying this is a terrible place to work, then obviously they're not going to be encouraging people. So we're trying to improve our brand here at DDOT. We've gone through some troubles here. People need to know that this isn't the DDOT, of 10 years ago. This is now. We have a new executive director with 30 years of experience who took an underperforming agency out in the western part of the state and turned it into one of the top 5 places to work in the country in transit. So we're going to spread those seeds here at DDOT. We're going to do a job fair. We're going to use our internal resources and any external resources. We want you to help when we do have this planned. Right now, we're in a virtual environment. Hopefully, at some point, we'll become able to go out and reach out and touch people personally. But right now, we're confined to the virtual experience. But any help that you can provide, I'd love to work with you all. The more hands on deck, the better.
And let me just add one more thing too. Again, I'm very encouraged by hearing your suggestion, because I popped up at one of the garages yesterday and spoke to the operators. And there were so many people that are proud to be at DDOT. As a matter of fact, a lot of them volunteered to help with the scheduling, help with trying to get people on board. They wanted to know if we had any new operators. They were giving me ideas about routes and schedules and what's wrong with the routes and what's wrong with the schedule. And we intend on utilizing them as much as possible to get the information not only out to the public, but to us. So it's a two-edged sword. But anyway, I know you have another question. I'm sorry.
Well, I believe this is awesome, because we have a lot of wise warriors with DDOT that during the darkest times of COVID last year, when everyone was getting sick and everybody was dying, you have some soldiers who stayed. And if it wasn't for those particular soldiers still holding, holding it down, I think those stories need to come out and whatnot. So I really appreciate all that. And plus, marketing is like one of my main fortes, so I don't mind sharing that wisdom with you guys. The other thing is about customer.
Ms. Lopez. Hola, this is Chief Brown. Hola, Sister Lopez.
Hey, Ricky.
I just want to give you a quick update on this when it comes to us. Our officers are already scheduled for training, 8-hour training block with Wayne Mental Health, and then followed up with a 40-hour block whenever we can find the time with Wayne Mental Health that will address not only the current situation the whole country is involved in with dealing with mentally incapacitated personnel, but also internal mental capacity of our officers. So, and your friend James Lightfoot and Wicker are leading that charge. So we are scheduled for that training.
Thank you. See, these are awesome things. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So the last two questions is about customer complaints. What is the timeline? So the two things that were brought up were like overcrowding and rudeness, right? So what is the timeline? Like, who does the investigation and who responds to the original complainant to resolve that? And do we use the cameras like to do a snapshot? Like if the reason why the bus driver drove past because it was too crowded, is there a snapshot that can say, hey, it was true, and if a person's complaining about a driver, we can go back online and watch that. Like, how does that look like?
So, Commissioner Lopez, I have my investigator on the line. She did say that she was here. LaKenya Sheffield. LaKenya, are you here to address Commissioner Lopez?
I think we have to move her over. And I just want to reiterate really quickly, we only have about 10 minutes left. And I did want to at least briefly talk about, great. I just want to briefly make sure we can talk about the bylaws. LaKenya, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Hi, I'm LaKenya Sheffield. I am the customer complaint investigator. In regards to the complaints for passenger pass-ups, the way that I investigate is I go into Clever Cat. There is a way to see how many passengers are on board by a passenger count. So I can use that to tell if that coach was crowded. And then if the customer has provided a contact email, an email is sent out to them letting them know that the coach was overcrowded. In the case that I cannot pull that, I do send that over to operations to request for video footage review for them to be able to see how many passengers was on board, or actually see that a bus was not crowded when it passed up a passenger. We also can pull video footage when the complaint comes for passengers experiencing discourteous drivers. So once I get those complaints, I send them over to the superintendents, over to the terminals, so that they can sit down, have an interview, conversation with the driver, and also request for the video footage to be pulled.
Thanks, LaKenya.
And thank you with that. The last question actually goes into what you want to talk about, Mickey. with the advisory board, and this, I guess, is specifically for you, Augustine, is that I know as a commissioner, I do want to be more intentional and I do want to have more teeth. And so when are we going to meet one-on-one?
Aha. Okay, so I have no problem meeting with all of you one-on-one. All we have to do is just schedule it. It's that simple. Sharon Perry, Perry S at DetroitMI.gov. I will talk to her and set up one-on-ones with all of you. As a matter of fact, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I've been running so much for the past some months. I'm not even going to lie to you, trying to meet with all types of commissioners and all kinds of stuff. That part may have fell by the wayside, but I think it's important that I do a one-on-one with all of you. So when are you available? Let's make this happen. And I'm not going to use fancy words like hola, like the chief just tried to do. You know, but I know a little Spanish, but I'm not going to try to flex. So anyway, yes, we'll have I'll have Sharon reach out to you and we'll make it happen.
Okay, and after we meet one-on-one, I guess based off of what Mickey is going to share, I do believe like all of us as a group, like Pat was saying, we have to work together. We want to work together, and how can we do that if we're not talking to each other before we have our public meetings? Because I would like to show measurement of improvement as we move forward.
I love it.
So that's it for me. So go ahead, Mickey, go ahead and do your thing. Thank you so much.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda is to have some conversation and dialogue about the structure. So we did touch on that a little bit, as well as the bylaws. So just to preface this, we have had quite a few conversations with the commissioners about what they would like, what you all would like to see from this body. And for the most part, as far as the meeting specifically, you all are okay with the frequency. And I think the big thing that I picked up on today, so feel free to correct me if I'm missing it, but there is a want to be more involved from the commissioners. And we just need to probably have a couple conversations to better understand both ways what DDOT needs from the commissioners, and then also to better understand what the commissioners need from DDOT. So I think we'll be able to kind of clarify that a little more and maybe provide some more structure just on what our expectations are at DDOT and then what the commissioners' expectations are moving forward. So I think another thing that was made clear today by Director Oglesby was we are absolutely open to suggestions all the time, starting years ago. If you have any suggestions, if you have any ideas that you want us to consider, or if you just have questions, you can always reach out at any time. We will take any suggestions and any comments whenever you have them. And then I will make sure moving forward, we can have action items on the agenda. So if there are takeaways from the reports and we do have requests that we need from the commissioners, we can make that known in the meetings. Now to just quickly look at the bylaws, we don't have a whole lot of time. We have made some tweaks and some changes. This is just a draft. We do have a couple more steps to go through after we get this okayed by everybody from DDOT leadership, as well as the commissioners. We might have a couple more steps to go through to make sure that they're okay citywide and they are in line with other things with the city. But to quickly go through them, we outline, a general description for the commission. We go into having officers. So this is one of the things that we currently do not have, but having a chair, as well as a vice chair and a secretary, with the expectations that the secretary will be able to take meeting minutes and keep notes that will go out both to DDOT staff and to the commissioners, as well as the chair facilitating the meeting and possibly coordinating the agenda. So recently I have been sending out a draft agenda and asking for the commissioners if you have anything you would like to be added to the agenda. So just making sure coming into a meeting, we know what the questions are, we know what the conversation is supposed to be about, and we can be better prepared to have a more productive conversation. And then of course, if the chair is not available, the vice chair will then take on those duties for that particular meeting. We talk about the meetings themselves. So again, the commissioners did express you all like the quarterly frequency, so we will leave it at quarterly, and that is for the official meetings. So of course, if there is a need to touch base more than quarterly, if there's a question or a particular project that DDOT's working on, we will absolutely be able to have some impromptu meetings based on any particular reason for that. They will follow the Robert's Rule of Order, which is a work in progress. So thank you for that. A quorum, we will still plan to have at least 8 commissioners. So this is something that will be open for your thoughts, commissioners, as well as leadership. Right now, the way it's set up, there's a commissioner for each district and there's one at large. So there are 8 seats. Currently at this moment, we only have 6 commissioners, including one of them being an at-large commissioner. So there are 2 districts that need to be filled. At the moment, that is District 1 and District 7. And so we'll be able to work on filling those seats once all of this is approved and ready to move forward. If you are not attending a meeting as a commissioner, and this is something that we've already talked about, please provide 24-hour notice to the person who is scheduling the meeting. And then we will expect all commissioners to be able to attend as many meetings as possible, allowing, of course, we understand people might have emergencies come up or scheduling conflicts. So 2 absences a year, again, with that 24-hour notice, and then only 1 no call, no show. We talk about responsibilities a little bit. I am going to speed this up really quickly. Commissioner membership. So what will qualify anybody as being a commissioner if they wanted to apply or become one? And then some expectations about just being more engaged with DDOT. So attending 4 meetings a year that aren't these meetings. So taking the time to maybe pop in at a community input meeting, or if we have any other engagement opportunities around, again, any special projects, there will be an expectation for attendance there. As well as once we are through this pandemic, there will be an expectation to utilize DDOT more than just a couple times a year to make sure we are really getting out there and able to speak to our service. So I will send this out via email to everyone to just, again, take a few seconds to review. And then if you have any comments or any thoughts or any edits, please feel free to send that to me. I'll also provide some expected deadlines just so we can keep this ball moving. And then I'll send the meeting minutes out that are being taken now. We do have somebody taking minutes now, so that will go out as well in preparation for our next meeting. Last thing, are there any questions on that? Okay.
No.
Thanks. All right. Is there any new business? We have a couple minutes left. So is there anything that wasn't covered, commissioners or leadership?
Well,
Yes, I would like to offer my services to meet with the commission. After 32 years experience, I think I can, help in any way, shape, or form. I also want to work with Mr. Oglesby if he needs me. I'm not an adversary, I'm a friend. And DOT was part of my life. That's how I fed my family. And you don't forget where you come from. So I offer my services to help in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Art. Commissioner Lopez, did you have something to add?
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Zandra. As a commissioner, I did reach out. I did have a suggestion and an idea of a partnership. I'm also commissioner for the Hispanic Latino commissioner for Governor Whitmer. And so I had an idea, shared it with her. It got shot down. And even though it got shot down, I'm like, oh man, why didn't I think about that? It still gave me an opportunity to have a new personal and professional friend. And it feels good to be able to be heard and listened to, and I feel even more positive working together in the future. So I just wanted to give that shout out and say thank you.
Thank you. All right. Patty or Andy, I'm not sure if Andy's available right now, but were there any last thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Director Oglesby said, there were a bunch of things he wanted us to work on. If he can give us that list to make sure we don't miss stuff and we can get working on it, that would be terrific.
Okay. And then Andy, are you there? I know you said he had to step away. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate you all. Again, we will send out all of that information. So the bylaws will go out to everyone, as well as the meeting minutes once we have them compiled. And thank you for attending. So we can adjourn the meeting at 12:01. Have a good day, y'all.
Thank you.